This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
So, Jeff, when I moved out here to L.A. in '84, right around when I met you guys, I noticed like you guys were kind of collecting cool watches, and then I got into it, you know.
I remember being on road trips, and once in a while, we'd stop in thrift stores, and there used to be boxes of these beautiful old American watches. They had no intrinsic value, but they were like Hamiltons and Longines. And
it was like Art Deco stuff, too. 50s.
Yeah, some of it was Art Deco. And you'd find these things, you'd buy one for $8. We'd bring them back, and in those days, there was a thing called a watchmaker.
Yeah.
And you could actually, get them cleaned up, and you had no money in them. It's a shame, too, because it was a really fun way to kind of collect little bits of art.
I think I still have my Hamilton, and my mom had bought me a Lacotra. That's really cool.
Yeah, you just showed me that. I can't believe how beautiful that thing is.
And remember that store, Leathers and Treasures? Yeah. He sold cowboy boots, leather jackets. He did have watches. And then there was the other store.
This was all in the 80s in the heyday of
on Melrose.
Yeah.
You guys missed a good time.
Yeah, it really was pretty fun. When Wanna Buy a Watch opened, that was kind of the end of the mom and pop stuff.
Yeah, because they started going out and finding these watches and cleaning them up. And
yeah, like you were talking about guitars the other day.
Yeah, it's like you can't find that special thing that nobody knows what it is anymore.
Yeah, someone's dad's guitar that's been in a closet for 30 years.
Or a watch that their dad wore in World War I, and everything's on eBay or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's the same with barn finds. With cars, they call them barn finds. You find some beautiful old, classic car. No more.
Yeah. Those days are over, kids. So, man, there's so many expensive watches out there. But in today's episode, we're going to focus on one particular watch. Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with gathering and collecting not just objects of value, but objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, the Moon Watch, Buzz Aldrin's Omega Speedmaster Professional.
We're going to talk about that Speedmaster in the space program today, but first we're going to spend a little time on the origins of timekeeping. See what I did there? Time.
Timekeeping, yes.
The idea of keeping time goes back as far as 5,000 years. Of course, the ancient Egyptians, and the Greeks, and Chinese civilizations all used timekeeping as a way to structure society and religious practices.
Yeah, they didn't want people being late to church, did they?
It wouldn't surprise me if that was what time was.
The most familiar of the devices they used was the sundial that started to appear in ancient Egypt around 1500 BC. But it wasn't until 300 or 400 BC that it actually became the round ones we think of. Very simply, sundials used a rod called the gnomon, mounted on a flat plate with hour lines on it. If you watch it, it seems like the shadow of the gnomon moves around the dial as the sun moves through the sky. But it's actually the Earth's rotation. And that's for all the flat earthers out there.
Yeah, and actually, if those things are set up correctly, they're surprisingly accurate.
Yeah.
And then water clocks appeared around the same time as the round sundials that used water dripping at intervals out of a container with lines marked on it to correspond to the hours.
Water, really?
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
That's amazing.
We're stupid.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And like a lot of our subjects, we don't always have time to get into too much detail, but this is really interesting stuff if you want to look into it.
Yeah. Mechanical watches were revolutionary when they started to show up in the 16th century, but they were pretty bulky, so they were usually worn as pendants. Almost immediately, they became a symbol of wealth and power, and of course they still are. But I was surprised to learn that wristwatches really only became a thing in the early 20th century, especially with World War I soldiers and pilots. They needed a way to check time without fumbling with a pocket watch. Makes sense.
Yeah, and when they came home, the wristwatches caught on, and that was really the beginning of wristwatches as we know them. So by the 50s, everyone had at least one, and there were too many watchmakers to even keep track of. Some of the brands that were created then are still the most popular and expensive now.
A lot of the early brands are still making some of the most prized watches in the world, and one of them is Omega, the makers of our Speedmaster professional moonwatch. Some of the coolest watches I've ever seen are from movies and TV.
Your watch.
How strong is it?
Fairly strong. You haven't had the time to test it properly. Just be careful.
This is going to go brilliantly.
Former SAS types with easy smiles and expensive watches. Rolex.
Omega.
Beautiful.
Watches have been featured in Bond movies since the early 60s. He wore a lot of different brands like Rolex, Omega, and even Seiko. And some collectors actually look at what Bond's wearing in the latest films as an indicator to what's going to be popular. But to us, by far the best thing about his watches are the weapons. I mean, over the years, his watches have gotten him out of more trouble than his gun.
Absolutely.
What some of the coolest shit in his watches, like a laser cutter.
Oh, yeah, and the magnet that deflects bullets.
A bomb detonator. and a buzzsaw.
Yeah, well, actually, my watch has a buzzsaw. That's no big deal.
And then Iron Man, he had a really weird watch, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's a real watch, but it looks like something from another planet. It's made by a company called Urwork. And in real life, it's a relatively new company, and their watches are just these beautiful, crazy-looking things. But in Iron Man...
What does it do?
Well, this is a watch you want. The whole fucking suit that he wears comes flying out of the watch.
That's awesome.
And the characters in Fast and Furious all have like these signature watches, like Paul Walker, rest in peace. Yeah. He had a Master Compressor Navy SEALs model, which stands for...
Tough like steel.
Exactly. And then Helen Mirren wore an Omega.
She was in Fast and Furious?
I guess. I don't know. I only saw the first 35. Dwayne Johnson.
The Rock?
Yeah, out of Paneri. And, of course, Dominic Toretto is played by Vin Diesel.
Oh, that's his name in the movie, Dominic
Right,
Toretto.
Whose real name isn't Vin Diesel.
And I'm sure he has a bunch of watches.
Yeah, Dominic Toretto has like a watch collection. That's a thing.
Oh, in the show?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think.
And if Vin Diesel isn't his...
Vin Diesel.
If Vin Diesel isn't his real name, what's his real name?
Mark Sinclair.
Oh, that's
which is actually not a bad name. It's kind of a movie star name.
Yeah, I mean, why did he change it?
Because Vin Diesel. Come on.
It's almost as good as Rip Torn.
Yeah.
That's
if you met Vin Diesel and had no idea who he was,
you'd say
you would say that guy looks like a Vin Diesel.
I like him.
Me too. I love him.
So also in Interstellar, Cooper, a former NASA pilot played by Matthew McConaughey, gives his watch to his daughter before leaving for space.
Yeah, this is a good watch.
Yeah. The watch sends coded messages to her that contain quantum data that helps her find a solution to gravity and save humanity. You think that was in the manual?
No.
How do you say that?
You mean the Hamilton Khaki Aviation Pilot Day Date Manual?
Yes. Push these 3 buttons and twist the knob.
And you will solve gravity.
And save humanity. But what's our favorite, dude?
Well, by far the greatest scene ever involving a watch in any movie is the one in Pulp Fiction. I'm sure you've all seen it. But
if you haven't,
it's a flashback scene where Christopher Walken tells the child version of Bruce Willis about the legacy of his father's watch. I can't even say it with a straight face.
Here's the clip.
This watch was on your daddy's wrist when he was shot down over Hanoi. He was captured, put in a Vietnamese prison camp. He knew that if the gooks ever saw the watch, it'd be confiscated, taken away. The way your dad looked at it, this watch was your birthright. He'd be damned if any slope's gonna put the greasy yellow hands on his boy's birthright, so he hid it. In one place he knew he could hide something, his ass. 5 long years he wore this watch, up his ass. Then he died of dysentery. Give me the watch. I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass 2 years. Then, little man, I gave the watch to you.
Classic.
Watches are all over TV, too, of course. Like in Mad Men, for example. Don Draper wore a series of different prestigious watches and, subtle elegance to help define his character, like a Rolex Explorer. I'm going to pronounce it correctly. Jaeger LeCoultre Memovox.
Nice.
Never doing that again.
Good job.
It's spelled like Jägermeister. That's how it gets pronounced from now on. So, fuck you. It was an important watch in Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah. Bryan Cranston, who played Walter White, started out as a mild conservative chemistry teacher who wore an 80s Casio. And he was always jammed up about money. And even when he made a fortune making meth and being a drug dealer, he was still freaked out about money.
Yeah.
But one day, Jesse, his partner, gave him a Tag Heuer Monaco as a symbol of his success. In episode 54, Walter White uses it to coordinate a series of brutal prison murders, kind of Godfather style.
Speaking of
Godfathers, The Sopranos is another bad guy show that uses a watch to define a character.
Yeah, and the writers were great. They really paid attention to detail. For example, with Tony Soprano, who was James Gandolfini, of course, he was a powerful, intimidating gangster, so they gave him this sort of, a super prestigious watch that most people would never be able to get near. It was a 36 millimeter yellow gold Rolex Day Date, and it's totally inaccessible to most people.
Right.
And then animated TV got into the act too. My favorite, The Jetsons.
Meet George Jetson.
Don't make me. Now I'm going to have the song stuck in my head for the rest of my life.
His dog, Elroy.
Jane, his wife. We're going to get in copyright trouble. Anyway, he was... George Jetson always got annoying calls from his boss on his watch phone. And
his watch phone.
His watch phone, yeah.
Think about it.
Yep. So we may not have gotten all the flying cars and the restaurants on other planets, but we definitely still get annoying phone calls on our watches.
On our watch phones.
On our watch phones.
We have watch phones now.
Yeah.
They're fucking weird. We really saved the best for last.
All right. Might as well put on some music. All these weird gadgets, you'd think they'd give you a radio.
What would you like to hear?
What the hell was that?
Do you wish further information on Silicon Valley?
Hell no, I want to know who you are and how you're listening in.
There's no reason for increased volume. I am scanning your interrogatives quite satisfactorily. I am the voice of Night Industry 2000's microprocessor, KITT for easy reference, a kit if you prefer.
No, I don't prefer, and what's more, I don't intend to drive around in a car that talks back to me, so clam up. I'm going to listen to some good music, and don't offer any suggestions. I'll choose my own.
As you wish, Mr. Knight. But since you are still recovering from your ordeal, and I detect we're in a slightly irritable mood caused by fatigue, may I suggest you put the car in the auto-cruise mode for safety's sake?
No, you may not. And that's final. Good night.
Good night.
I can't believe this. A car that talks back to me.
Knight Rider, starring the immortal David Hasselhoff, who's really popular in Germany, right? That's what they say?
Yes.
But actually, it starred a 1982 Pontiac Firebird called Kit.
Yeah, David Hasselhoff was a prop.
Kit knew everything and could do anything. Hasselhoff wore a cheesy-looking 80s Casio they called the Comlink that communicated with Kit. So Hasselhoff could control it from a distance and also, come on.
Who cares? It was
a great show. It really was.
Tracy to kids. Come in, kids. It's here at last. The new Dick Tracy two-way wrist radio that keeps you in constant touch with your buddies.
Even comic strips got into the possibilities of futuristic wearable devices as far back as Dick Tracy,
Right.
which I wonder if anybody now remembers him. I mean, he was popular into the 70s, right?
Yeah. And they did that movie. It was in the 90s.
Yeah, with Warren Beatty and Madonna.
Pacino.
Was Warren Beatty in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was Dick Tracy.
He was Dick Tracy. But they had two-way wristwatches. I mean, that was
long before TV. Dick Tracy started in 1931, and he solved crimes using his two-way wrist radio. Okay, so we're talking about all these fabulous watches with all, what if you could have a watch that would do anything you wanted it to do, what would it do?
Make me younger.
Okay, I had some ideas, but I can't really top that. I was thinking flying and invisibility,
right.
and
I'll go with flying.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go with the younger. I know what I could really use a watch to do. Help me remember things.
It does now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You can have a watch with a computer on your wrist now.
I forgot.
Well, you can't talk about sports without time and watches and clocks. Right. And I mean, every sporting event has a play clock and a game clock.
Yeah, and timing track events and all that. And even baseball, which for so many years stayed away from the clocks.
Now they have a pitch clock, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. And Omega, who makes our watch that we've been talking about, has been the official timekeeper of the Olympics since 1932.
Yeah, it's hard to see any kind of image of the Olympics without that big clock.
Yeah.
So before we get into our main topic, here's a little background.
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration was founded in 1958 as a response to the Russians' launch of Sputnik 1, the very first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. NASA's purpose was to develop competing technologies in what became known as the space race. Our first response to Sputnik 1 was Explorer 1, which most historians say literally launched the space age in 1958.
A few years later, in 1961, JFK shocked the world.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
The good news for NASA was a massive influx of cash and resources, and the public loved them. The bad news was that they had no idea how to do it. This was at a time, remember, when the Apollo guidance computer that would eventually run the mission to the moon had less processing power than a USB wall charger. We'll give you a minute to let that sink in.
We're just fucking with you. We're not going to get into all the history of the Mercury and Apollo missions because we have nothing new to add. But we do think it's great stuff and well worth a little time. And that brings us to the moon landing only a few years later in 1969.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
3 astronauts were on the Apollo 11 mission. 2 of them, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, rode a lunar excursion module to the moon and walked on its surface, while the 3rd member of the mission, Michael Collins, stayed in the Apollo capsule. He's kind of been unfairly forgotten by history. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, without Collins in the capsule running the mission, it would have never happened.
And that brings us to one of the silliest but most enduring conspiracies in U.S. history since JFK's assassination. We never went to the moon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you someone who thinks we never went to the moon? Well, we think you're nuts.
But you can try and convince us by emailing us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok. There were opinion polls taken in different places between 1994 and 2009, and it's just, I don't know how to get my head around this. between 8% and 20% of Americans, 25% of Brits, that's a quarter of the country, and 28% of Russians believed that the moon landings were faked. And even in as late as 2001, Fox TV, of course, did a documentary called Conspiracy Theory. Did we land on the moon?
There's been tons of conspiracy theories over the years about a fake moon landing, but the granddaddy of them all was started in 1976 by a technical writer for Rocketdyne, the company that manufactured the boosters for Apollo 11, called We Never Went to the Moon.
I was a science nerd as a little kid, and I remember exactly where I was during the moon landing. I was at my uncle's house watching on this big black and white TV.
Yeah, I remember vaguely. I'm sure my mom and dad watched it. And
oh, yeah.
I mean, I was 7, so I don't physically remember it or mentally remember it, but I'm sure I watched it.
Oh, yeah. Everybody with a TV saw that. And so cut to a million years later, and I'm producing films, and I get a call. There's a guy named Bill Casing who wanted to pitch a movie based on a book he'd written.
So it was that guy.
Yeah. The book was We Never Went to the Moon.
I was for 7 years head of technical publications for the Rocketdyne Research Department at the Propulsion Field Laboratory. And during that time, I had top secret clearance. And of course, I was in on all of the top secrets about the development of Mercury and Gemini and of course Atlas and eventually Apollo. So that's my background, and the government claims that the reports of astronauts and photographs and some rocks prove that we went to the moon. And my feeling is that some photos and some people who have been under military pay or military jurisdiction all their lives and some rocks don't prove a thing.
So, of course, as a lifelong fan of the space program, I had to at least meet the guy. And by then everyone had heard some conspiracy theory or another. I think my favorite was it was shot by Stanley Kubrick on a soundstage in the desert.
Right.
But this guy was just totally serious and believable. And he was like, he was the real deal. He was there. So, as ridiculous it was, long story short, I actually walked him into Warner Brothers and pitched the movie.
I don't think you ever told me about this. What happened?
Oh, I can't believe I never told you. They passed.
Oh, they did, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that sucks. It would have been fun to see that movie.
It really would have been. Well, I'll tell you, we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Even now, Joe Rogan pushes shit like this. Some people even said NASA was so lazy that they used the same fake photos of the moon for all the missions. And recently, a sociology teacher was fired for telling his students the landings were fake. I mean,
I know.
He shouldn't have been fired, but he shouldn't have said that they're fake. I don't know.
I don't know if he's teaching kids that.
I mean, if he's a gym teacher and he says it, he shouldn't be fired.
That's true.
He's a history teacher.
Well, he's a sociology professor, dude.
Yeah, that's right. You were telling me a little bit of interesting trivia about the book.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was a movie called Capricorn 1 that was based on that book, and most people remember it as being about a fake moon landing, but it was actually about Mars, because NASA said that they wouldn't support it unless they, if it was about the moon. So, I mean, imagine poor NASA. These men and women accomplished something so spectacular that it was literally unbelievable to some people. So some of the stuff Bill talked about was pretty interesting. You remember the footage of their landing, right? The grainy black and white?
Yep.
Well, that footage was actually, the footage that was seen around the world was only broadcast by one camera. There was a camera in the NASA control room that was pointed at the monitor of the feed from the moon.
Yeah, so they could control it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nobody would know that it was fake.
Right. So what was this guy like? Was he paranoid? What did he seem like?
He was a mild-mannered, very thoughtful and well-spoken guy.
Did he seem paranoid, like he's afraid like he's going to get
Well, it's interesting. He did
taken out?
He did say that he and his wife were, I think they were living, I can't remember where they were living, but they ended up moving to a houseboat. And he did think that, yeah, come to think of it, he was a little crazy. Yeah, now that I think about it, he did actually have some misgivings about his
paranoia.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, this conspiracy stuff is all fun to talk about. Remember that movie we recently saw called Fly Me to the Moon about the conspiracy it was really kind of affectionate, not a gotcha thing, but it was a pretty fresh approach about this whole
it was
subject.
a really nice take, and of course we love Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. So
what's our game? Fuck them, marry them, and kill them?
Kill, fuck, marry.
So we'd have to add somebody to this. Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
So
well, that's the kill.
Okay.
And I want to fuck both of them and marry them.
Okay.
If you've heard the show before, you know that we try to categorize and prioritize the collectibles we talk about, but we're not nearly expert enough to make sense of the insanity of the collectible watches world, so we're not even going to try to. There are too many brands and models and variables, so we've just put together a few examples of some of the most desirable collectibles and their value to a collector.
Yeah, we're going to focus on a sampling of rare vintage watches of significance and exclude the ones made out of a bunch of gold and diamonds and, crazy stuff like that. The final watch on our list is one exception. If you heard our episode called Heavenly Sneakers, you might remember that Nike accounted for almost all of the most expensive sneakers. In this case, Patek Philippe dominates this list.
But the first on the list is a Rolex, the 4133 split seconds. A split seconds watch has a mechanism that can time two separate actions at once, and the 4133 is the only split second watch Rolex ever made. We don't know how many were eventually made, but it was a limited run, and a 4133 from 1942 sold at auction in 2011 for $1.7 million. Now, we thought that was crazy for a watch, but we had no idea what crazy was.
No, we did not.
Here they come.
The next one is a Rolex as well. It's called the Daytona Gold Unicorn. It's white gold, and at the time, Rolex was only making steel and yellow gold Daytonas. There was only one made in 1970, which is why it's got the unicorn nickname. It's the second most expensive Rolex ever sold. A collector paid almost $6 million for it in 2018.
Next is the first of several Pateks on our list, the Two Crown World Time Eurasia. This one was sold in Geneva in 2021 and became the highest-selling watch ever in a yellow gold case. It's nicknamed the Silk Road after the cloisonné dial that depicts Eurasia. Now, we should mention at this point that some of these watches, like this one, have to be seen to be believed. They're just beautiful. The buyer paid $7.8 million for this one. The next Patek is called a Gobi Milan Ur Universelle from 1953. Only 7 were made, and one went on the block at Christie's in Hong Kong in 2019. It was the only known example of this reference to be signed by both Patek and the prestigious Milan retailer Gobi. It sold for almost $9 million.
Like we said, Patek Philippe kind of dominates this list. The next one is the Patek Prince Mohammed Tussaud. Tussaud is a direct descendant of Muhammad Ali, the founder of modern Egypt.
I didn't know Muhammad Ali. I knew he was a fighter, but...
And not the prize fighter. The watch is believed to be one of only about 340 pieces that Patek made in 1941. And this one, with a copper pink dial, is the most rare version, with only 14 known to exist. Sotheby's in New York auctioned it in December of 2021 for $9.5 million. Now we're getting started. The next Patek is the Reference 1518. The 1518 is groundbreaking because it's the world's first mass-produced perpetual calendar chronograph. It was limited edition and only 281 were made from 1941 to 1954. In November of 2016, a Steel Reference set a new record for the most expensive wristwatch publicly sold for $11 million. The next one is the only other Rolex on the list. It's the Rolex Paul Newman Daytona from 1963.
Daytonas became a valuable collectible after Newman was spotted wearing one during his racing career. And they can go for more than $100,000, but that's for, just a basic 63 Daytona. The one we're talking about was given to him by his wife, Joanne Woodward, and he wore it until his death in 2008. In October of 2017, it was auctioned off for $17.75 million.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah, and finally, just the craziest one. It's another Patek, and it's called the 2019 Grandmaster Chime.
Yeah, this is the last on our list, and it's the only new watch. It was sold at the Only Watch charity in Geneva in 2019. When you hear the price, it might sound vulgar at first, but the Only Watch charity was founded in 2005 to fund research to cure Duchenne muscular dystrophy and other genetic diseases. They got almost $32 million for this watch and deserved every penny of it.
And that brings us to the subject of today's episode, the Omega Speedmaster Professional, nicknamed the Moon Watch. Speedmasters were used by astronauts on missions and in training, but the one we're interested in is the one Buzz Aldrin was wearing when he walked on the surface of the moon, because a few years later it vanished without a trace.
Yeah, the circumstances surrounding the disappearance are sketchy at best, and a lot of questions still haven't been answered. At the beginning of the 1970s, the watches from the moon mission were going to be delivered to the Smithsonian for permanent exhibit. NASA contracted a team of transport specialists to deliver the watches to the museum. They should have got the A-team. Because it didn't work, whatever they were doing. Armstrong Speedmaster Professional, which had served as a timekeeper on board the lunar module during Apollo 11, made it to the Smithsonian. But Aldrin's never did. And of course, NASA freaked out immediately and called back all the Speedmasters used during the first moon landing mission.
Naturally, over the years, new rumors have made the rounds, but in 1990, a guy named Morley thought he discovered the moon watch after he found it in a student newspaper ad. The father of the kid who put the ad in the paper said he found it on the beach in California, and Morley thought it was the one because the inside of the case back was engraved with the number 43, which was the ID number of Aldrin Speedmaster.
Right. So then Morley contacted the Smithsonian and NASA directly, and they took his call very seriously. Morley had begun a legal dispute for its ownership, and NASA arranged for an expert opinion report to verify its authenticity. After about a year, they figured out that it wasn't the original moon watch. Bummer.
Yeah, really.
Among other things, the origin of the case-back engraving was never clarified, so it is possible that it was just a regular service marking.
And eventually, the U.S. and Buzz Aldrin publicly confirmed that it wasn't the original, so no one even knows for sure if it still exists. But even after all this time, it's still possible that it could turn up. So maybe someone out there has it but thinks it's a regular Speedy and doesn't know what they've got.
Yeah. I mean, it might be out there somewhere. But even if it shows up, they'd still have to figure out who owns it, right?
Yeah.
Buzz Aldrin, NASA, and the Smithsonian would all lay claim to it because in 2003, all three of them considered themselves the watch's rightful owner, even when Morley's Speedmaster turned out to be a different watch.
Oh, what a shit fight that would be.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen the crazy prices of some of the rarest and most collectible watches, but this one's not only an enigma, it's been to the moon and back. So what would Buzz Aldrin's Omega Speedmaster moonwatch be worth to a collector?
It would be kind of priceless, really. I mean, you think about it.
Yeah, it's a completely different category from all this other stuff.
Yeah, no other watch has been to the moon and back.
Well, no other missing watch has been to the
watch.
moon.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
No other missing watch has been to the moon and back. Something's fishy about this whole thing. Something's really fishy about it.
This is one of those things that somebody in 100 years or 10 years or whenever, someone's going to die, like someone's father's going to die, and they're going to open up a drawer, and it's just going to be sitting there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your father, listener.
Yeah. Everybody check your father's drawers outside.
So to speak.
So to speak. As we always try to do, we look into using the resources at hand, but like everyone else who's tried, we don't have a clue.
No.
So if anyone out there has some more information about the moon watch, let us know. So thanks for listening to our most recent episode and maybe our last episode. And if you like the show, please tell your friends. If you don't like the show, please tell your friends.
And if you have anything to add to the show, you can email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or you can message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok. Either way, please don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts so we can quit our day jobs.
From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.